What is Newton? Newton is digital. Newton is personal. Newton is magic. Newton is as powerful as a computer.
Great. What's the problem, Mustang? No problem.
Trouble with your refreshment system?
So when you are riding, when you hit maximum speed, it will automatically start to beep and have you tilt your feet back to slow you down. At first, when you're...
The 1990s promised rocket ship progress. Clear colas, pocket computers, virtual worlds. The future now. But some game changers crashed so hard, they left dents in the decade. Today, we're counting the boldest 90s flops that were unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Stick around. Before we hit number 21, you'll see a revolutionary idea that literally sent customers racing to the bathroom.
White turtle doves, I like to teach the world to sing. Sing with me. Perfect harmony, perfect.
New Coke. Imagine waking up one day and your favorite cola doesn't taste like your cola. In 1985, Coca-Cola chased Pepsi's sweeter profile with New Coke. Slick, confident, and certain it would win the taste bud war. On paper, it worked. In blind tests, people liked the new formula. In reality, fans felt betrayed. Switch the logo, fine. Touch the flavor, heresy. Phone lines melted, letters piled up, and "We want our Coke back" became a cultural roar. Within months, Coca-Cola Classic returned, and New Coke became shorthand for "Don't mess with what people love." Lesson learned. Nostalgia is an ingredient you can't replace. Next, a soda that looked like the future until people actually tasted it. Crystal Pepsi. Crystal Pepsi was minimalist chic in a bottle. Clear cola, clean label, big anthem. It promised purity, freshness, the 90s in liquid form. And visually, it slayed, shimmering on shelves like a sci-fi prop. Then came the sip. Your eyes said lemon lime, your tongue said cola, and your brain said, wait, what? The cognitive dissonance was brutal. Massive ads couldn't fix the flavor mismatch, and the novelty burned off in months. Today, it's a perfect relic of 90s optimism. If we make it look new, people will feel new. Not quite. Up next, a handheld future of computing that turned your notes into nonsense. Apple Newton. Before smartphones, there was the Apple Newton, a sleek personal digital assistant that promised handwriting recognition, portable organization, and life streamlined. The idea was visionary, the execution early. Recognition often misread simple words. Jokes went viral, and the price stung. Still, under the stumbles lived real innovation. Mobile apps, digital notes, sync, the DNA of later hits. The Newton didn't fail for lack of imagination. It failed because the world, and the tech, weren't ready. Apple shelved it, then returned years later with devices that nailed the dream. Coming up, a virtual reality console that delivered 3D plus headaches. Nintendo Virtual Boy. Nintendo swung for the fences in 1995. Virtual Boy, a tabletop headset promising immersive 3D. The catch: a red and black world, no head tracking, and a design that demanded you hunch into a visor like a tired cyborg. The novelty was cool for 5 minutes. Then came eye strain, headaches, and parents side-eyeing the whole thing. With few must-play titles and awkward ergonomics, it slipped from future of play to yard sale legend fast. Yet even this misfire pushed boundaries. It proved consumers wanted VR, just not like this. Microsoft Zune. Microsoft Zune, the 2006 music player designed to rival Apple's iPod. It was more than decoration, it was a statement of the time. Sleek and portable, it promised seamless music sharing and stylish design, aiming to capture the hearts of a new generation of listeners. Yet despite its features, it arrived too late to dethrone the iPod, struggling to gain traction in an already dominated market. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Though it never became a household name, the Zune is remembered as a bold attempt to innovate in digital music. It wasn't just a gadget. It was a glimpse of what tech dreams looked like in the 90s and 2000s. And just when people thought digital music had peaked, the 90s and early 2000s had yet another quirky flop lined up. Sony Magic Link. Sony Magic Link, the early 1990s attempt to bring personal digital assistants into homes. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. With a touchscreen interface, email capabilities, and organizer functions, it promised a glimpse into a high-tech future. Yet its complicated setup and steep learning curve left many users frustrated. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite its innovations, the Magic Link never caught on, quickly fading from the market. It wasn't just a device. It was a snapshot of the decade's ambition and curiosity for what technology could do. For tech enthusiasts, it's a nostalgic oddity, a symbol of dreams slightly ahead of their time. For families, it was just normal life, but today it feels strange. And just when you thought personal gadgets had peaked, the 90s had another surprising flop ready. Atari Jaguar. Atari Jaguar. The early 1990s console marketed as the world's first 64-bit gaming system. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Promising cutting-edge graphics and gameplay, it aimed to take Atari back to the top of the gaming world. Yet its complex controller and limited game library left players frustrated. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite high hopes, the Jaguar failed to compete with Sega and Nintendo, quickly fading into obscurity. It wasn't just a console. It was a bold gamble on the future of home gaming. For gamers, it's a nostalgic curiosity, a reminder that ambition alone isn't enough. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought gaming flops couldn't get any wilder, the 90s had yet another oddity waiting. Apple QuickTake. Apple QuickTake, one of the first consumer digital cameras, launched in the early 1990s. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Sleek, portable, and easy to use, it promised to bring photography into the digital age, letting users capture moments without film. Yet its low resolution and high price made it impractical for most consumers. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite its pioneering role, QuickTake quickly disappeared from stores, overshadowed by other digital cameras and the rise of smartphones years later. It wasn't just a camera. It was a glimpse of a future the 90s dared to imagine. For tech enthusiasts, it's a nostalgic oddity. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when photography seemed settled, the 90s had another quirky flop ready to surprise. Colgate Beef Lasagna. Colgate Beef Lasagna. Yes, the toothpaste brand tried its hand at frozen dinners in the early 1990s. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. The idea seemed bold. A trusted household name, bringing convenience to mealtime. Yet consumers were baffled. The combination of a toothpaste brand and savory beef lasagna didn't inspire confidence. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought 90s food couldn't get any stranger, the next flop was ready to shock. Coors Rocky Mountain Sparkling Water. Coors Rocky Mountain Sparkling Water. Coors. Surprising attempt in the 1990s to branch out from beer into fizzy waters. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Marketed as a refreshing alternative, it promised crisp, mountain-fresh hydration. Yet, beer fans were confused, and soda drinkers weren't convinced. It never found its audience. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite its bold branding, the sparkling water fizzled quickly, leaving only memories of an unusual experiment. It wasn't just a beverage. It was a daring leap into uncharted territory for the 90s. For consumers, it's a nostalgic oddity. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought the beverage world had peaked, the 90s had another weird flop waiting. Ford Edsel. Ford Edsel, the infamous 1950s car that became a cautionary tale for decades. But its story still fascinates today. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Marketed as the next big thing in automotive design, it promised innovation, style, and luxury. Yet consumers were underwhelmed, confused by its bold, unusual grille and high price, and sales plummeted. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite massive hype, the Edsel quickly became a symbol of corporate miscalculation. It wasn't just a car. It was a reminder of ambition and missteps that define eras. For history buffs, it's a nostalgic legend. For families, it was just normal life. But today, it feels strange. And just when people thought car flops couldn't get stranger, the next story was ready to shock. Betamax. Sony's high-quality videotape format that promised to revolutionize home entertainment in the late 1970s and 1980s. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. With superior picture quality and compact design, it seemed poised to dominate the market. Yet a format war with VHS and shorter recording times led to its rapid decline. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite loyal fans, Betamax vanished from shelves, remembered as one of the most famous technology flops in history. It wasn't just a tape. It was a glimpse into the bold, competitive spirit of the era. For tech enthusiasts, it's a nostalgic curiosity. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought home video had settled, the 90s had another wild flop lined up. Clairol, Touch of Yogurt Shampoo. Clairol, Touch of Yogurt Shampoo. The 1990s beauty experiment, promising silky hair with a hint of yogurt goodness. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Marketed as a nourishing, exotic solution for everyday hair care, it aimed to combine innovation with a natural twist. Yet many consumers were confused. The idea of yogurt and shampoo felt strange, and it never quite captured the market. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Curious how many more odd beauty flops the 90s had? Hit subscribe and discover the most bizarre products you never knew existed. Despite quirky marketing, the product quickly faded from shelves. It wasn't just a shampoo. It was a snapshot of the decade's fearless approach to experimentation. For beauty enthusiasts, it's a nostalgic oddity. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought hair care had peaked, the 90s had another peculiar flop waiting. McDonald's Arch Deluxe. McDonald's Arch Deluxe, the 1996 attempt to create a grown-up burger experience. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Touted as a premium menu item, it featured a special sauce, crisp lettuce, and a toasted bun designed to appeal to adults. Yet loyal fans of classic McDonald's sandwiches found it confusing, and the marketing failed to resonate. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite heavy advertising and hype, the Arch Deluxe quickly disappeared from menus, remembered as one of the fast food giant's boldest flops. It wasn't just a burger. It was a glimpse into the 90s appetite for experimentation and reinvention. For families, it was just normal life. But today, it feels strange. And just when you thought fast food had reached its peak, the 90s had another quirky failure waiting. Kodak Disc Camera. Kodak Disc Camera, the 1990s attempt to make photography compact, convenient, and stylish. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Using disc-shaped film cartridges, It promised quick, easy snapshots without the fuss of traditional rolls. Yet poor image quality and high cost left users frustrated, and the novelty quickly wore off. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite Kodak's reputation, the disc camera vanished almost as quickly as it appeared, remembered as one of the decade's most curious tech experiments. It wasn't just a camera, it was a bold attempt to simplify life, even if it didn't quite work. For families, it was just normal life, but today it feels strange. And just when photography seemed predictable, the 90s had another unusual flop ready to surprise. Harper's Island Popcorn Chicken. Harper's Island Popcorn Chicken, a 1990s attempt to reinvent fast food chicken with bite-sized, crispy pieces. It was more than decoration, but it was a statement of the time. Marketed as a fun, convenient snack for families and kids, it promised to bring excitement to the dinner table. Yet the concept struggled to resonate, with limited availability and underwhelming marketing. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite its crispy appeal, popcorn chicken quickly disappeared from menus, remembered as one of the decade's curious culinary experiments. It wasn't just chicken. It was a tiny adventure in flavor that captured the 90s love for novelty. For families, it was just normal life, but today it feels strange. And just when you thought fast food creativity had peaked, the 90s had yet another bizarre flop lined up. Segway. Segway, the self-balancing personal transporter that debuted in 2001. But its story and hype were rooted in the 1990s innovation. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Promised as a revolutionary way to navigate cities, it featured futuristic design and cutting-edge technology. Yet its high price, awkward learning curve, and limited practical use left many scratching their heads. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite intense media attention, Segway never became the urban game-changer it was imagined to be. It wasn't just a gadget. It was a glimpse into humanity's obsession with sleek, high-tech solutions that sometimes miss the mark. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when people thought transportation innovation had peaked, the next 90s flop was ready to stun. Disney Channel soda. Disney Channel soda, the early 1990s attempt to merge sugary fun with the magic of Disney. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Promising a taste as whimsical as the cartoons it represented, it targeted kids and teens, eager for novelty beverages. Yet the unusual branding and overly sweet flavor left consumers puzzled, and it never caught on. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite its colorful packaging and bold marketing, Disney Channel soda vanished from stores, remembered as one of the decade's most curious drink experiments. It wasn't just soda. It was a tiny fizzy portal into the playful imagination of the 90s. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought kids' beverages had peaked, the 90s had another oddball flop ready. Pepsi AM. Pepsi AM. The 1980s-90s experiment aimed at morning soda drinkers. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Marketed as a caffeinated alternative to coffee, it promised a bubbly start to the day with familiar Pepsi flavor. Yet, the concept confused consumers. Soda for breakfast didn't quite catch on, and the taste was polarizing. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite heavy promotion, Pepsi AM quickly fizzled from shelves, remembered as one of the era's strangest beverage experiments. It wasn't just a soda. It was a bold glimpse into the 90s' willingness to mix routines and risk everything for novelty. For families, it was just normal life. But today, it feels strange. And just when you thought morning beverages were predictable, the 90s had another quirky flop lined up. Lifesaver Soda. Lifesaver Soda, the 1990s attempt to turn a classic candy into a fizzy beverage. It was more than decoration, it was a statement of the time. Promising sweet, colorful flavors inspired by the iconic candies, it aimed to delight kids and teens with a playful twist on soda. Yet the concept was confusing, and the taste failed to match expectations, leaving consumers disappointed. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more, despite its eye-catching packaging and novelty appeal. Lifesaver's soda vanished quickly, remembered as one of the decade's strangest drink experiments. It wasn't just a soda. It was a fizzy snapshot of 90s creativity gone wild. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought sugary drinks had peaked, the 90s had another quirky flop waiting. Google Glass. Google Glass. The ambitious attempt to bring wearable tech to everyday life in the early 2010s. But its roots trace to the daring 90s, inspired vision of futuristic gadgets. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. With a sleek design, head-mounted display, and hands-free internet access, it promised to merge the digital world with reality. Yet privacy concerns, high costs, and awkward usability kept it from going mainstream. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite massive hype, Google Glass largely disappeared from public use, remembered as a bold tech experiment. It wasn't just eyewear. It was a daring peek into a world that wasn't quite ready. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought personal gadgets had reached their limits, the next surprising flop waited. Crystal Pepsi Vanilla. Crystal Pepsi Vanilla, the 1990s follow-up to the original Crystal Pepsi, attempting to blend clear soda with creamy vanilla flavor. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Promising a visually striking and unique taste, it aimed to capture the novelty-loving hearts of teens and soda enthusiasts. Yet the unusual combination of clear cola and vanilla confused consumers, and sales fizzled fast. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite bold marketing and curious flavor, Crystal Pepsi Vanilla disappeared quickly, remembered as one of the decade's strangest soda experiments. It wasn't just a drink. It was a sparkling glimpse into 90s experimentation gone a little too far. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought soda couldn't surprise, the 90s had another odd flop waiting. Bic Underwear. Bic Underwear. Yes, the same company known for pens and lighters tried its hand at apparel in the 1990s. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Marketed as disposable, convenient, and low maintenance, it promised an innovative twist on everyday essentials. Yet consumers were baffled, Pens and lighters were one thing, but underwear? It never gained traction. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite bold marketing, Bic Underwear quickly vanished from shelves, remembered as one of the decade's strangest experiments. It wasn't just underwear, so it was a quirky glimpse into the 90s' fearless approach to trying anything. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought personal products had peaked, the 90s had another unusual flop ready. Frito-Lay Wow Chips. Frito-Lay Wow Chips, the 1990s fat-free snack that promised guilt-free indulgence. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Marketed with Olestra, a fat substitute, it aimed to let snack lovers enjoy chips without the calories. Yet many consumers experienced unexpected digestive side effects, and the novelty quickly wore off. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite heavy advertising and curiosity, Wow Chips vanished from stores, remembered as one of the decade's boldest snack experiments. It wasn't just a chip. It was a daring taste of the 90s obsession with health, convenience, and innovation. For families, it was just normal life. But today it feels strange. And just when you thought snack innovation had reached its peak, the 90s had the ultimate surprise flop waiting. Olestra Snacks. Olestra Snacks, the 1990s fat-free revolution that promised guilt-free indulgence in chips and other fried treats. It was more than decoration. It was a statement of the time. Using Olestra, a synthetic fat substitute, manufacturers aim to satisfy snack cravings without calories. Yet while the concept was innovative, many consumers faced unexpected digestive issues, turning curiosity into caution. At first glance, it looked practical. In reality, it was much more. Despite bold marketing and health-conscious hype, Olestra Snacks quickly disappeared from shelves, remembered as one of the decade's most notorious food flops. It wasn't just a snack, it was a daring lesson in how innovation can backfire spectacularly. For families, it was just normal life, but today it feels strange. Curious for more wild 90s flops? Hit subscribe and join us as we uncover even more forgotten innovations.